Welcome to the Athlete Brand Advisor Podcast, featuring advice and interviews about athlete branding. Learn how marketing, public relations, and broadcasting can grow your brand. We also have special episodes to talk about recent news, events, and anything in the world of sports. The podcast is sponsored by Pliable, a versatile marketing, PR, and broadcasting company that identifies opportunities and creates tailored content for its clients. Now it's time to roll. Here's your host, Glynn.
Thanks, and welcome to the Athlete Brand Advisor Podcast. In this episode, we're talking about NIL, but not from the athlete side, but from the business or company partnership side. Dana Ammons is a dynamic leader and strategic thinker, currently serving as the CEO of VGP, Value Growth Partners, a consultancy firm specializing in propelling businesses with the consumer goods and beauty industries towards unparalleled growth and operational excellence. He's a good friend, and he's going to get you going if your business needs help. I can tell you that right now. Dana, welcome to the Athlete Brand Advisor Podcast.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to join you today on the pod and really looking forward to speaking to your audience.
Yeah, this is going to be great. So I think the first thing I want to do is have you tell people, what is the Value Growth Partners? What does your company do?
Yeah, no, great question. And, thanks again for having me on the show. I'd like to tell people the simple way to think about what Value Growth Partners does is we make brands better. That is our simple proposition. Now, what does that mean, right? That means a lot of things depending on where your brand is in the growth process of taking a brand from startup all the way to scaling and commercialization. And we will help you with every one of those stages, whether you are a very small individual entrepreneur who is just looking to take an idea and get that idea started off, or whether you're somebody who's been frankly in the entrepreneurial space for 12, 14, 15 years. You've been, trying to drive sales, drive product awareness, drive growth, and it just hasn't worked out. Those are the types of projects that we love to work on. So we are really a full service consultancy there to support any entrepreneur and brand owner in their journey to success.
Absolutely. And I've been in conversations with you in those types of meetings when we do a little bit of discovery with some of these entrepreneurs, and they start to realize some of the in-depth questions that you have, which I think are so important. Obviously, we connected over the NIL space and the aspect of branding and marketing, but really not just for the athletes, but for the businesses. And on this specific podcast episode, I really feel like this is an opportunity for businesses that are out there to learn and hear from you about how NIL can help with their overall marketing strategy.
Yeah, that is a great question. So let's start from one of the most obvious areas, and one of the areas that we connected on, Greg, and your agency is doing a great job, which is engaging brands that need to speak to consumers in a specific market or in a specific target segment. And an NIL athlete has a distinct advantage in launching, selling, and engaging consumers on products that they actually either use or are parallel in some way or fashion or form to the sport that they play. And so that means different things like nutrition and sports training equipment. And we've talked to even a client of yours in Heads Up Hockey. There are plenty of product opportunities and branding opportunities out there for the right NIL athlete. And having that foothold as an athlete in school with a platform really makes you a very powerful new entrepreneur in the space.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing that too with the influencer marketing, the entrepreneurial space, a great way to launch a brand or build brand awareness and not have to pay a tremendous amount for it. In many cases, it can be products, it can be services, it can be in trade. And I think that that's such a great opportunity for these entrepreneurs. So I know that obviously regionally is another thing. Like I think that a lot of entrepreneurs or local business owners aren't thinking, oh, this is for me, when I actually have a completely different mindset, which is this is totally for you because we can find you the athlete. So I think if you could speak to, local businesses and how they could grow through this opportunity by finding a local influencer.
Yep. And I mean, the local influencer strategy is frankly the strategy of the moment. Influencer strategy started with these massive, huge influencers who were, hundreds of thousands of dollars in cost to brands, but did a great job of boosting visibility and sales for those brands. And now, as the influencer category and strategy has evolved, frankly, local and regional influencers are very much in demand. And that is because, number one, you have an explosion of entrepreneurship across the regional and local markets. And those local brands, those regional brands, they need an affordable way to reach their consumers. They need an affordable way to engage their audience. And what better than regional, local influencers, athletes, especially, who also represent not just an opportunity to engage a audience, but also an audience that frankly can grow with the brand, given the typical or average age of your NIL athlete.
Yeah, the other thing that I think about when I think about NIL and area for growth, right? We're always looking for areas for growth, is in women's sports. And you take a look at the number of athletes that I represent that are female athletes.
I love
and
it.
I enjoy serving what I call the underdog right now because they haven't had this chance. And now they do, and they're crushing it. Talk to me about it from a female athlete perspective and what we're seeing in the growth of women's sports. That market is going to take off.
Look, first of all, as a girl dad and a former coach of said daughters, I am very passionate about women's sports. And you're right, the growth has just been phenomenal. If you look at what's happened this year with the WNBA alone, and the attention that league has seen, I think they've almost doubled their audience and viewership over the last several months. So you see this growth and this strong interest in women's sports, and the opportunity is not just because we are finally seeing additional equity in terms of media and attention and even resources being given to these female athletes, but we also now see a monetary reason, a business smart reason to support and to engage these athletes. And I remember this, debate in the media and in the news a couple of years ago with respect to the soccer players, the women's soccer team not being paid on an equitable level versus the men. And then when they looked at the business case for it, women and women's soccer was actually generating more revenue, more viewership, more audiences than the men's team was at the time, and I believe still is. So I think, to take it out of the cultural argument and to bring it squarely in, does it make business sense? It makes extremely smart business sense. And so I am very passionate, very happy to see that women athletes and women athletics are now starting to see that support. And so there then follows an opportunity, especially for the emerging NIL female athlete, to really take advantage of this wide open range of brands and services that you can engage in, not only as a sponsor, but as a brand owner and an entrepreneur yourself.
Yeah, and I think that as we talk about it from the business side of things, now is a great time for businesses to get involved in NIL, because if you can get in on the early side, I feel like you can also start to work with an influencer early on in their career.
Correct.
And if they go and they hit it big, you essentially were in there from the beginning. They're going to value that relationship. I have a few of those right now with the athletes I work with who could go on to play professional sports, and they're going to remember those brands and those businesses that lined up to support them. Yeah, right from day one. And so that's why I think, and I'm sure you can speak to this, that's why there's so much equity involved in partnering with a young college athlete at this time.
Oh my God! You make such a great point, because if you think about the overall life cycle of a NIL athlete with respect to all of the different areas a brand would want to touch, meaning you can develop a relationship not just with that athlete, you can develop a relationship with that athlete's town. You can develop a relationship with that athlete's high school, which in many cases tends to be a legacy or an institution school in that community that is consistently putting out top athletes. So that benefits you as a brand in terms of a long-term relationship. And then you can actually drive a long-term relationship with the sport itself. So if you have a product or a service that really fits that particular sport, why wouldn't you want to get involved and support an athlete at an NIL level, who will then immediately get you engaged in an organic way at the grassroots level of that sport? And to Greg's point, and then you grow with them through the pro ranks. And so even ultimately, as we see the new wave of athletes monetizing their personalities and their appearances and their brands, that could extend throughout the life cycle of that athlete's career. So we're talking about 10, 15, maybe even 20 years of a productive, fully transparent, but profitable and mutually beneficial relationship between the athlete and the brand.
Let's talk about the ways that you're helping businesses right now and kind of share with me some of the things that you could do that they might not even be thinking about.
Sure. Look, I think one of the main things that people find challenging about starting a brand in the current business climate is understanding who the actual consumer is and then how to reach that consumer. We all have great ideas about products and different things that we could create, services, et cetera. But once you get that product put together and you've got the actual concept down, now where do you take it to sell it? Right? Do you put it on Amazon? Do you try to go to a retailer? And if you do try to go to a retailer, how do you get into a retailer? Those are simple questions that we can help you answer. We can help you figure out the right path for your brand or your business idea. We can also then help you test out and make sure that that idea is actually as appealing and as engaging to the actual consumer who you want to pay money for it as it is to you, right? I find that many entrepreneurs will come into my office and say, man, Mr. Ammons, I got this super duper idea. And they tell it to me, right? And it's like that old Something About Mary scene where, the guy explains 7-minute abs. And then, he goes, well, what happens when somebody comes out with 6-minute abs? And it's like, oh my God, I didn't think about that, right? Like you need somebody to walk that journey with you from the beginning. And a lot of us are frankly very, very paranoid in today's current time about sharing a great idea because you think somebody's going to steal it. You think somebody's going to plagiarize it or copyright it and go and run and take it. But if you don't share, if you don't seek help and support, that idea may never, ever see the light of day. So I think one of the things that we really help early stage founders do is get off the couch, so to speak, and actually execute the idea. Quit talking about it and find a practical way to actually commercialize that actual product or service.
Oh, that sounds great. And let's kind of start focusing here a little bit for a few minutes just on, talk to me about advice for a business looking to get involved in NIL and kind of your advice on what to look for in an athlete, what to look for your brand to market that with the right athlete. You don't just pick anybody.
Yep, exactly. So number one, I would say, case in point, I would advise businesses, brands, entrepreneurs, anybody thinking about entering that space to first seek out an agency like Pliable and seek out somebody, a professional like Greg, to guide you through that process. And I honestly believe that's the first step, is figuring out who you're going to partner with to actually go engage these athletes, right? There's rules to this game. You can't just go show up on campus and walk around and start tapping people on the shoulder and asking if they want to sign with your brand, right? Yeah. So it really makes sense to go out and team up with a Pliable. Secondly, it also makes sense once you team up with Pliable and Greg and you sit down and start talking about your strategy, I think you need to have a clear line of sight on where you are willing to spend money, right? What is the budget? What is the structure of that budget? How do you want to support this athlete? And understand that these programs have wide ranges of monetary value. So you don't have to go in thinking you're going to have to pay every athlete $100,000. That's not the reality. And that's the beauty also of this NIL world. And so I think the strategic thing is first understand what you are actually willing to pay. What is your budget? What do you want to spend? And then what are you trying to accomplish?
And the other thing too, I think a lot of times, Dana, they don't realize that this can be done for a gift card. This can be done in trade. Like you don't have to fork over that money. And that's the beauty of it. Yeah.
Correct. And again, the reason why you join up with somebody like Pliable is because he will have the ideas and the ways and different workarounds to getting you to the right relationship and the right setup that actually can then be sustainable versus doing something that is one time, a one-off. Yeah, you might get a quick splash in the water. You might get a couple of athletes to come in the room, but are they going to stay with your brand? Are they going to passionately push your brand? Are they going to show people in a very organic way that they are truly a supporter of the brand? Probably not if you don't spend that effort and that time. And so I think you're right. Like you've got to understand the value there.
And I love what you're saying too about understanding the athlete you want to work with, because if you find an athlete that's passionate about your industry or the service that you provide, the level at which they are going to perform for you from the NIL perspective is going to be several levels higher than if they are just told, hey, make a post about this, you're going to make commission if you sell it, whatever. I can tell you those deals flop quickly when the athlete isn't passionate or loves the product enough to actually authentically promote it, because those are the ones that fall on their face. So that's why I always encourage, and I think you hit that right on the point, is, okay, find the athletes. And that's what agencies do. They know, or they should know, their athletes well enough to say, these 3 athletes would be perfect for you. And then you're getting that matchmaking that many people are familiar with dating services, but now you're using it from the NIL perspective to find the right athlete for the right product.
That's such a great point. I mean, I think, and one of the things I wanted to go back that you mentioned as well, which is to get the indicator or get in line of sight on whether or not that athlete or the athletes you're targeting are really engaged in the product, you're going to have to actually give them some product. Right? So that's another thing I want to make sure that brand owners and founders and anybody thinking about getting into the space understands, because it tends to be a bit of a after the fact thought process for a lot of founders, and you really need to plan up front to give plenty of samples, free product, or if you have a service, free service opportunities for your target audience, including your potential influencers. I can't tell you, Greg, how many times I've had to go back and beg founders to send product in advance just to see if they can even get the engagement of the athlete they're targeting. The founders tend to be so confident about the product, they don't want to share it. They don't want to let people try it, or they just didn't allocate enough money up front for the prospect of sampling. And now they find themselves in this, kind of tough bind on whether or not to give it away or sell it. And in most cases, when you're starting off, you defer to selling it. So just make sure, founders, you remember these young kids, they want to try the product out, but they are athletes in school. They don't have unlimited budgets. They don't have money to try out stuff that just showed up at their door. Remember, they didn't call you, you called them. So you need to be willing to also engage them and support them as if you would be supporting a major influencer or a celebrity.
Yeah, well said. Well said, Dana. Let's go to how people can get in touch with you, because this has been a great conversation.
No, great. Listen, you can always find us on the internet at www.thebrandblueprint.biz, which is our podcast. And then you can find us at valuegrowthpartners.com, Value Growth Partners, and without an E. So that's VALU growthpartners.com. And any and every opportunity we have to just sit and talk with new brand owners and founders, we take it. So go to our calendar tab on our website, and you can schedule either a 30-minute or an hour-long first meeting with VGP, and we will walk you through our process, learn more about your brand, and then offer ways that we could potentially help support you.
That's excellent. And I find that people are going to totally do that, because you know exactly all the things that we've talked about here today and so much more that these brands and entrepreneurs are going to be able to learn from you. So thanks for your partnership with Pliable, and thanks for coming on the podcast.
No, thank you. We're looking forward to an exciting partnership with Pliable. I cannot stress enough for those of you watching this content how important it is to partner with a professional in the category, and Greg is definitely that. So make sure you reach out to him first on any NIL athlete opportunities. And obviously, if you need additional support on those opportunities, come talk to VGP as well. Thanks again.
Awesome. Yeah, no problem. I'm Greg Glynn. We're glad you could tune in, and stay pliable, my friend.
Thanks for listening to the Athlete Brand Advisor Podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes from today's episode and catch up on recent episodes at pliablemarketing.com. We also encourage you to share topics and guest ideas by emailing our production staff at pliablemarketing@gmail.com. We love hearing from our loyal listeners and athletes who want to grow their brand. So jump in and be part of the podcast, because that's how we roll.